Bam, we're live. All right, so let's cut the chit chat and get straight into it. It's been quite a while since our last game. So just to give you a quick recap of where we're at, three of us, as being the erudite, the murmur, and the oracle, are currently before the gates of malice, beside a roaring but also kind of oddly calm river of black oil. Meanwhile, Lilith has been kidnapped by the arch-fiend Malice himself, who is held inside the grand city of Malice. And from there, that is where we will continue, actually. We go back to the second day, or rather the second night. Lilith, your hands are chained behind your back, and your feet are chained as well. You cannot move a single inch of your body, for some mystical unseen force has you locked. You are levitating 4 feet off the ground, and you are being pulled behind Malice, as he himself sits inside of one of his great pleasure thrones, and is instead pulled by a horde of demons on throughout the citadel of Malice. He is staring at you, and you're very well aware of the thousands of pairs of eyes on you from all these different angles, from these hidden buildings, all tieflings, you assume, watching you from the shadows. He stares at you, Malice, looking different than what he once did. His crown of 7 horns, the 7 stitched eyes, the 7 pairs of stitched eyes on his cheeks, stitched shut, as I was saying, the 8th eye open on his forehead, the pair of wings wrapped around his legs, the pair of wings sprouting from behind his ears, and the pair of wings sprouting from his back, wrapped around his torso and his arms. The 2 tails basically coiling behind him and around him like massive anacondas, demonic, hideous, disgusting, lined in spines. His 1/8 eye stares at you. And then you begin to be pulled further towards him. And once you are no more than a few feet away, he reaches out with one of his hands, the hand itself the size of your upper torso, and he takes one little clawed finger and he taps the tip of your forehead. The pain you feel is excruciating as he draws from your mind every memory you've had since you've escaped the Ring of Teeth and Malice proper. He sees every adventure, every person you've killed, every person you've eaten, every demon you've slain. He sees you, the 4 of you. He sees the smoke devils, or what you think are smoke devils, telling you that you have 7 days to live. He sees the dream that you had of that person dying in the middle of a blood swamp. He sees you running with the orcs, and he sees the demon of song attacking the orcs, and he sees you all fleeing, and he sees everything from there until he's captured you. And then he pulls his finger away, and you are bleeding from your nose, and you are bleeding from your eyes, and your mouth will not move, for your mouth is held shut by the same power that keeps your muscles locked and rigid. Eventually, the pulling stops, and Malice rises. When he does so, he is slightly floating above his pleasure throne, and he turns around, and you move with him, orbiting his body. And when you're before him, I guess originally behind him, and now before him, he turns you around to see what he has brought you. And you see inside of this crystal the size of an old ruined castle, is something strange, something dead. This thing has no eyes, and its skull has been ripped open, and it has no brain you can see, and it has no heart, no arms, and no legs, and its throat too has been devoured. Just a spine connects its bald skull to the lower half of its body, to the rest of its body, I should say. And Malice leans forward until his lips are in your ears, and he says, "That is the World Eater, the god who invaded this place, who set all this in motion so long ago. The 4 of us took what from him we could. Jupiter took his arms and his legs. Song took his voice and his breath. The oracle took his eyes, and I took his heart and his brain. You don't understand what that means, but when your brother sees these memories, he will." And then we skip forward a full day. You're standing back inside the Ring of Teeth, Lilith, What does the ring of teeth look like?
The ring of teeth is very literal in its description. Whether these be teeth of great beasts, demons, behemoths of the sands, Lilith isn't sure. But they come up and they surround this large blood-stained area. And it is almost as if it is just this gaping maw of teeth that at any moment these teeth are just going to snap shut around this area.
Important to mention as well are the stands that surround the ring of teeth. These massive walled protective things filled to the brim right now with shouting, cheering tieflings as you walk onto the sands. You've been led out here, not so much against your will, but essentially against your will. You found yourself in a dark tunnel, and you walked down that dark tunnel, and now you are here in this old familiar place. You see separating the four stands are these four massive pillars, and atop each pillar is a throne. But only two of the thrones have occupants. One of them has Malice, of course, looking down, and the other one has another archfiend, one you haven't seen before, but one who you recognize just by the feeling it gives you. Well, you recognize it as only an archfiend, but it's this massive person, easily 16 feet tall, a perfectly chiseled body. His muscles have muscles, and the way he gleams, it's clear that he's not made out of flesh. You see, it's like there's something underneath his porcelain, transparent skin that's thrumming and moving. These gaseous lights. It looks like a gas giant has basically been sealed inside of his body. And pouring out from his nose and his mouth are these great white and gray and blue clouds that form a beard and wrap around his head and give him this flowing mane. And he's looking down at you with these two bleeding eyes like this, just watching as you walk onto the sands. Lilith, you found that you have all your armor. You found that you have your weapons. You found that you're no longer exhausted. You're no longer hurt whatsoever. You're just standing now in the center of the ring of teeth. What are you thinking? Do you say anything?
This is almost a relief to Lilith. Stepping out here is very strange for anyone else. This would be their doom, but she just is reliving the glory when things were simple, when ideas were black and white, kill or be killed. There was no relationship, there was nothing else but death or life. And as she steps out onto the sands, her eyes scan the crowd, but only for a moment before they rest on Malice, and she does not take her eyes off of his eighth eye. But she raises her hand up. Blade, battle axe, held strong above her head.
As you raise it, the tieflings cheer louder than ever before. They sound almost like orcs. Almost, but not quite. And the stands begin to rumble at your feet. And then you hear a roar above all of this. That most certainly is that of an orc. And the teeth across from you begin to shake and they begin to move away to reveal the person striding through. Now, you said there were no relationships inside the blade of teeth. Lilith, did you ever look at any of your enemies with hatred? And did they ever look at you with that same hatred? Or was it just a matter of violence and survival?
It was just a matter of violence. There were those who would goad her, who would try and get some sort of emotion response. But when she was in the arena, all that went away. She didn't see them as humans or people or living things. This was just target practice for her.
then I wonder what your reaction is to the sheer amount of hatred inside a demon drinker Hanad's eyes as she strides forward onto the blood sands. When you see her, she is almost totally naked, save for the loincloth that she wears and the necklace of demon skulls that she has around her throat. And of course, the bones, the black demon devil bones, encapsulating both her arms and her shoulders. In each hand is a massive, super thick roll of chains, and chains also fall with them dragging in the sands behind her. She is tattooed, unlike before, from crown to the bottom of her feet with sigils. Sigils you cannot read, but you know that your brother could. The sigils you still partially recognize. The same sigils that are used to absorb the souls of men when they're killed and devoured. And she stands there looking at you, her tusk bending upwards, her eyes nothing but balls of fury, and she is weeping and crying when she sees you. And she roars your name, and that roar is so destructively, disgustingly loud, it silences the tieflings. And as the camera moves away, you hear that roar as well, erudite, murmur, and the oracle, as the gray sun rises behind you and silhouettes you three standing in front of the gates of Murmur as we enter into the 4th day of Crifoth, the last 7 days. As you guys look at these gates, you see that, oddly enough, there is no one manning them. There's no defenses, there are no guards, there's no one watching, and they're wide open. It's clearly an open invitation. You three are very experienced. You know a trap when you see one. And this is most certainly some kind of trap. Now, do you willingly walk into it, or will you walk away?
Well, we're here. We're here. What do we do now? You two seem to know more than I do.
Well, looks like they're inviting us in. Let's go.
Just because an invitation is extended does not mean it has to be accepted. This will surely kill all of us. Erudite, and Murmur turns his horned helmet in your direction, Erudite. The only reason that I would even consider going back into that place is, do you think it is possible to rescue your sister?
Possible, yes. Is it needed? Maybe. Can she rescue herself? She did before.
That is true, but if we are referring to the slave revolt that brought us all together, there was an entire slave revolt that brought us all together, not just one woman trapped potentially in the ring of teeth. And he pauses and then looks from the oracle to the erudite. I know that certain death awaits anyone, any human that enters that city, but... And then he just sort of shakes his head. It rankles in this strange way.
It is odd to see it so empty, so desolate. But the maw is open. It awaits for the bird to perch before it snaps its jaws.
Then perhaps we should go. This is obviously a trap.
I don't think they really understand who they're dealing with yet. They've never met people who stood up before, so far into the reign of terror. They've grown lazy and arrogant against humans. We will remind them.
Do consider the fact that we walked to these gates willingly just moments ago. And here you are saying, oh, let's turn around and leave again.
Correct. But we did not walk to these gates willingly. I assumed, and he again looks at you, Erudite, now turning his massive body fully to face you. I assumed that you were leading us away from danger, as you always have, Erudite. Yet we found ourselves, after talking with that strange ash elf here at the black gates of Malice. Could you not lead us away?
I was not leading in that instance. I was merely following the oracle here. I could lead us away, perhaps.
Well, let's just find your sister first, and maybe we'll leave.
Well, we found her. She's there, and he just gestures to the black abyss of terror, the citadel, Malice, right next to them. She's there.
Let's go get her.
Erudite, I will follow you. Whatever direction you decide to go, I will go. You have saved us numerous times. I believe you are the key to my survival, perhaps to your sister's survival as well. But if you do not believe it is in our best interest to go into this place, and I would not blame you, then we should go.
And where would we go?
Back out into the sands. We can run forever, can we not? He tilts his helmet to the side.
I think the erudite would look to the water skins that we all have, and the fact that they're probably close to empty. Can we, though? I don't imagine there's many drops of water left in this hell-forsaken world.
We cannot run forever. Our time ran out. We either do something before the end, or we don't.
And the end still comes. The end still comes.
It does not mean we have to hasten that end, boy. And Murmur looks at you, Oracle, again. You can feel the intensity of his gaze from inside that horned helmet.
Our actions before the end do not disappear after our death. They still ripple and influence others, even after we perish.
And Murmur looks back to you, Erudite, and says, clearly in a tone of finality, as in this is the last bit of what passes for wisdom for him that he will impart. I told your sister once that I would rather be a living, dishonorable coward than to make a courageous, honorable corpse. That has not changed, though I do have my misgivings about leaving Lilith, but you could be right. She was one of the best fighters in the Ring of Teeth. I am glad that I was never pitted against her. Perhaps she will be fine.
There is a compromise we can make. We could wait for her. We could watch from afar. Gaze through an eye that can see all at the events that transpire within these black walls. See how she fares.
Would we be able to be close enough that, should the worst come to pass, will we be able to try to save her, or would we be at a good enough distance where if things went south, we could flee, perhaps? How close do we have to be for this magical eye of yours to function?
Distance is no issue.
If this is the case, then it is agreeable to me.
I would warn you, though. If she is in danger, I can get us in, but I cannot guarantee I can get us out.
And Murmur just nods slowly, looking at the Oracle to see what his final say will be.
Fine, let's have a peek.
So the erudite looks for some hidden place to steal away, to use his scrying magic for the time being, to have no intruders or interrupters.
There are rocks and whatnot all
Yeah.
around you outcropping, so you're usually able to find one. What does it look like when you cast your scrying, erudite?
These are the last few droplets of water that the erudite possesses. This is the magical focus he needs to create a small mirror to see through. The most valuable liquid in Crifoth. And drop, 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 3 droplets hit the ground into the sand. And they do not soak into the sand. They float. A small bubble. And that bubble, if you were to look closely, would show the happenings of the Ring of Teeth.
Perfect. As you stare into that bubble, what you see is a very interesting scene that plays out real quickly. I'm going to shift perspectives for just a moment back to Lilith. Lilith, as Hanad, the demon draker, breaks your neck with her chains, what does it feel like as you die?
There is this overwhelming just sense of defeat, but it is so instant. It is so fleeting before the blackness hits. And it's just like there was something there. There was a thought process. There was action. There was potential. And then there wasn't anymore.
And then you open your eyes and you pick yourself back up. Hanad is staring down at you, and you can see that the many sigils covering her body, another one is glowing now. And she picks back up the chains and steps back, and the tieflings begin to roar again. She has killed you in the time that they've had this conversation 27 times now. You've never died once in your entire life, Lilith. You've never met a single person who could outmatch you in combat. And Hanad has killed you 27 times in just a few minutes. As you pick yourself back up, thank you, Connor. As you pick yourself back up, what is your thought? What are you thinking?
When Hanad first came through the door, or she first stepped into the arena, Lilith had never ever allowed herself to look at anyone other than target practice. But she looks at Hanad and there is this sense of fear. And after every time she killed her, this rage would grow. But then she'd bring her back, and confusion would mount up. Confusion, then anger, then confusion, then anger. And so this last time, this most recent time she gets back up, she spits out some blood onto the already blood-soaked sands. And a single word leaves Lilith's lips at Hanad. Why?
As you say that, another attack comes hurtling in at you. 1 second here as I roll it. Describe for me what it looks like as you take 34 points of damage as these chains smash you directly in the stomach.
The words leave her lips, but just as they do, she feels this pain rip through her stomach, through her chest, through her ribs. You can hear the cracking noise from all, just through the stands, and Lilith begins to cough up more and more blood, and she gets down to one knee. But she still looks up at Hanad, the question still lingering in the air.
All that strength, all that willpower you once had, and now you're on your knee. She lets go of one roll of chains. She's dragging them behind her. She whips her arm and she snaps them. You see an explosion of sand go out behind her. And you see the weapons are glistening in this light. And she takes another step forward to you and she continues saying, "You asked me why. You ask I, demon drinker Hanad, who wrestled with you in the demon's own black flames, why I want to seek vengeance for my people. What a foolish thing you humans say. And she makes another attack against you, and the chains explode the ground beside you. How do you react? Are you going to fight back, or are you just going to let her kill you for a 28th time, Lilith?
At this accusation, anger would immediately just start coursing through Lilith's body. And with a loud scream, spittle and blood just erupting from her mouth, she is going to charge at Hanad.
All right, go ahead and make your attack roll.
It's a 23 to hit.
That will hit. He has 19 AC.
That will be 17 points of damage.
Your first attack smashes into her, but she barely moves back whatsoever. It's like her feet just slide, basically slide back a few inches, and you realize that's only because you're standing in sand and you're not on solid ground. And now that you're inside of her reach, her arms come around you and they're going to wrap around you. Make an athletics or acrobatics check for me.
That's a 19.
It's a 19. You are grappled as she grabs you in this bear hug, and she pulls her head back and she shoves it directly into yours as she begins to headbutt you again and again and again. You're taking 20 points of bludgeoning damage before she finally willingly releases you, so that way you can stumble back. Do you say anything? Do you keep attacking? What happens next, Lilith?
She is going to begin to ignite, just glow in this red anger, as she is just, this anger is just coursing through her veins, and she is just going to attack and attack and attack her while saying, I fought beside you. It was not my choice to leave. Just saying that with each attack.
Perfect. I love it. You can roll those attacks and put them in the side chat as we switch focus real quick. You see this happening. You see the attacks. You've seen Lilith die and be brought back for who knows how many times. What do you say to your comrades?
I'd be relaying this to them. It's her. She's fighting against the orc. Back at Mother Camp, the same one, the chains. She's died countless times, but still lives. They're in this eternal struggle. Thousands of eyes watch them. The ring of teeth. And I imagine as he would say that, maybe Murmur would have a bit of a response or reaction to that very phrase. And Erde would look to him.
And Murmur is just standing very still, sort of. He's facing away from the erudite, sort of keeping watch, on the surrounding area to make sure that he's not attacked while scrying. But yes, upon hearing the words "ring of teeth," he stiffens a bit, and he has his obsidian longsword, which is forged in this vaguely demonic fashion, clutched in his hand, and his grip tightens on the handle. And he looks over his shoulder and says, "Should we go in after her?"
Looks like we have two allies instead of one, if there is also Hanad there.
I feel that perhaps she may not be our ally here. And he's pointing out how Hanad is very, very much not happy with the four of us.
She is driven with vengeance, but not entirely against us, but against those fiends in there. If we stand next to her, She won't attack us. She'll face our enemies.
So we can get in there. I can get us in there. We'll be surrounded, outnumbered 1,000 to 1. But we'll be at Lilith's side, at Hanad's side. And we'll be trapped in there. But we can stand as the 4 of us. Maybe even the 5 of us. What do you say, Oracle? Is she in sufficient danger for this?
You say you can get us in, but can't get us out?
Exactly.
How about we walk there and then you get us out?
One does not simply walk through the gates of malice.
I wish I could take a point of inspiration from you for saying that.
I would agree if they weren't open.
The gates may look abandoned, Oracle, but it is highly doubtful that they are truly unwatched.
An unlocked gate is the scariest of gates.
An unlocked gate, an open trap, are they really so different?
Yes. Well, it would be better then to
No,
not
the
go
Oracle,
through.
the Oracle here has merit to his suggestion of walking in. I can try to get us in undetected. We'll have to walk through. We'll have to be careful and vigilant. Who knows what things will be in our path. Our arrival at Lilith's side will not be guaranteed. But I can place us under the cover of invisibility.
Okay. How about it?
What
We'll
do
have
you
1 hour.
think, Erudite? Can we do this? This thing you suggest?
I'm not one who fears things, but I am hesitant about entering into the realm of malice. If we want to make an appearance, I would recommend an instantaneous one.
But then there is no guarantee of us getting out. This is a problem, and Murmur turns to fully face you, Erudite. Getting out, that is the dangerous part, I think. It is easier to stick your hand in the lion's mouth, but it is much harder to get it out.
Very well. We'll go in unseen. I doubt that even that may be useful. But we'll try. And so I can sustain invisibility on the 3 of us for the duration of 1 hour, assuming that something does not break my concentration. Yeah, and I would proceed to do so in the most optimal way, obviously.
Right. So as you weave this power, the 3 of you suddenly disappear from our reality and you enter into the realm of malice. The camera shifts again. And the Archfiend of Malice himself shivers. And he leans his head back and his 8th eye starts looking into the sun. And he takes in several quick, shallow breaths. And then the Archfiend known as Jupiter looks up to him. "They are here," he asks, the voice telepathic. Malice nods, having sensed you 3 entering into his realm. And Jupiter smiles and leans back. And Malice's eye is focused continuously on the sky. And at that, Lilith, you notice that Hanad has had a change in her. There's blood everywhere, of course. 3 of your attacks found purchase, and they were heavy attacks at that. and there is smoke and ash all around you guys, churning. You cannot see the Archfiends, or you could just barely see them a moment ago, and now you can't. You can no longer see the tieflings with the stands. There's just too much. And then as you go in for another attack, Hanad catches you by the wrist, and she leans in, and she says into your ear, I throw my chain at the one with many eyes. I bring him down. You attack. Do you understand? And then she kicks you in the gut and pushes you back. What do you do, Lilith?
Lilith, when Hanad says that, there's a sharp intake of breath from Lilith right before Hanad kicks her. And as she kind of falls back, she looks at Hanad. There is no nod, there is no nothing, because she knows even the slightest movement, even thinking about it, will tip off the demon. But she is,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
but she is hoping that Hanad sees the ever so slight look of intensity, the look of agreement in Lilith's eyes before she lunges back at Hanad, but in a way that makes sure that her arms are free. Like, maybe, yeah.
Perfect, I like it. As you lunge back, Hanad is beating into you with a variable maelstrom of chain attacks. They're all missing, of course, but they're all exploding more and more stand upwards into the sky. You can tell that some divine power is enhancing every strike, throwing more detritus into the air. And then you realize something, Lilith. You realize that you've been brought back from death 27 times now, and that bringing people back from death requires an overwhelming amount of magical force to do so. And that force, of course, requires a source. And in the moment you might be able to put those two things together, something happens. The chains explode out through the sand, and they wrap around Malice's throat. And at that one instance, at that very small moment, the demon called Jupiter is gone, and Malice is pulled down into the ring of teeth with an explosion of hellfire. This black flame rushing everywhere, burning at the teeth, evaporating the first row of tieflings in the line, but also giving you one clear shot at this, Lilith. Do you take that shot?
Lilith would not miss a beat. As soon as Malice came into contact with the sand, her axe would be there, swinging into him.
All right, so make your attack rolls. Spend any effort that you would wish.
Yeah, I'm gonna put in all the efforts.
Dope.
Okay. Whoops. That's a crit.
Because he's because he's restrained, that every hit you land on him will also be a crit.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So there you go. At least you got one automatic crit.
Yeah. And she is going to put in her divine smite on top of that.
Dope.
How many times could she hit? Just once, or how many?
You can do your full range of 3 attacks.
Okay, awesome.
Because you're an invisible conqueror.
Yes. Okay. All right. The other one hits, but the third one does not.
All right.
That does. Oh, so much math. That does 59 points of damage.
Beautiful. I love it. When you leap in with your axe radiating its energy, and you start swinging down on Malice, the cheering turns to screaming from the crowd as they're all shouting down at all of you in terror and abject fear. And they begin fleeing the stands, running down these tunnels, running for their lives as this is happening. Many of them stay too confused or too foolhardy to understand the danger they're in. And as you pull your axe away that last time, you see that kneeling beneath you is the form of Malice, who you've almost completely torn in half. One of his arms is hanging from his body. His wings are in ruins. He's bleeding from these massive gashing wounds. But you have not killed him. And he looks, his head raises up and it stares at you. His head easily the size of your entire upper half of your body. And two of the eyes sewn shut open up at once. Before we describe what happens next, we switch cameras again to you three moving invisibly. As you're moving through the streets of Malice, let me describe it for you. You see these massive, beautiful statues of all sorts of pit fiends and demons and devils, of Baylords and other great things, and of course of the Archfiends. You see this beautiful architecture wrought in steel and iron and blood obsidian, right? It just fills this entire city. It's all very spiky, all very baroque, almost needlessly elegant in some ways, and also extremely violent in other ways. But the ground begins to vibrate. And then the three of you see this massive crowd of tieflings screaming and just running down at you guys. Do you guys want to jump into an alleyway? What do you want to do here?
Yep, let's use our invisibility to our advantage. Let's try and avoid conflict. Hide in an alleyway, be silent and still.
Dope. So as you guys dash into an alleyway and the tieflings go running past you, it's a solid few minutes before they finally stop. And once you start seeing the stragglers move past you, this massive explosion rocks the entire city of Malice as you see something fall from the heavens, four somethings fall from the heavens, and just land straight into the Colosseum, the actual circle of teeth itself. And you see this fire, and not to be too on the nose, it's almost like a 9/11 situation where these huge clouds of smoke and debris come rushing through the streets and they blind everyone for just a while. And they're still hanging in the air, but they get a bit thinner. And what are your three reactions to this as this happens?
We must move fast.
Let's go.
Yeah.
It has begun.
And we would use, Erudite would use the cover of his invisibility with his ability for levitation to kind of maneuver in a swifter route through the city directly to the Ring of Teeth.
So the other two of you can't levitate, so what are you guys doing?
I would stay right next to Mermor as he probably knows the way towards the Colosseum.
Yeah, I would definitely think so. Murmur would try to move as quietly as possible since he is wearing just this rusted over half plate, but he would try to move in the direction of the Ring of Teeth, moving slowly.
Perfect. As you move through the clouds of ash and debris, erudite, you finally come upon the Ring of Teeth, and this is what you see. Hanad has covered Lilith's body. Lilith, make me a dexterity save real fast. As she's covered it, her entire back, the skin has been burned away entirely, revealing the flesh, and it has been burnt black and caked, and she is still standing, but just barely. Lilith, you have taken 120 points of damage from one of the 4 meteors that has fallen onto the Ring of Teeth. Hanad has taken more than that, and it has nearly killed her, for she sacrificed her own safety to cover you, Lilith. Her chains are completely broken and they have fallen to her side, and she is breathing heavily. And behind her, you see Erudite kneels Malice, who is breathing heavy as well and is bleeding from these massively severe, almost catastrophically fatal wounds to his body. And standing before him is an Archfiend that you know, since you know almost everything, known as Jupiter. Jupiter is scratching at his chin through the mist-like beard that he has, and he says, "Well, I didn't know that orcs could plan so well. Well, the Oracle had insinuated that this was some kind of trap, but Malice, oh, Malice. How foolhardy he is, yes. Surely you know this, right, Lilith? You fought much in the Ring of Teeth. You know this one has an elegance about him, yeah. But me, not so much, and I cannot let him die just yet. So I ask you to give up your lives now. Stop this fighting. Do not make me have to kill you. It will not be pleasant. Not nearly as pleasant as when she killed you. Lilith. And Lilith, what do you say to this as he speaks?
Lilith just looks at him. I imagine, is Malice just like down? I'm like really close to him, right?
There's some space between you just from the sheer force of the explosions. So between you and Malice is both Hanad, who covered you, and Jupiter himself.
Oh, okay. Lilith isn't going to say anything. She is going to start running. And her goal is to try and get to Malice.
So you can definitely make it the Malice. You were taking an attack of opportunity from Jupiter, of course, as you run. Hanad, go ahead.
Once she, like, I'm just gonna tell you what she wants to do. Once she gets to Malice, she wants to bite into his flesh and start drinking his blood.
Oh, okay. That's fun. All right. You run past him. And actually, Jupiter doesn't move to stop you. He lets you run underneath his legs, and you jump onto Malice, and you bite directly into his face, onto some of those stitched eyes. And Jupiter, looking at Hanad, his eyes move to the left, and he's staring directly at you, Erudite. And he says, exactly as the oracle predicted. And as you start drinking from the blood of Malice's fresh wounds, make me a Constitution saving throw, Lilith.
Can I use effort on this?
You can use effort if you would like, yes.
Okay, fantastic.
It is, however, I will go ahead and say now, an absurdly high DC. But I believe in you. I believe in you.
No, it's a 17.
Okay, that is not enough.
Yeah.
You drank his blood, and whatever flows into you is far beyond what the effects of demon blood should be. You've seen humans drink demon blood. You've seen people turn the tieflings before, right? You know, there's all this pain and there's yelling and all this blah, 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 blah bullshit because they're weak and they're weak, basically. But when you drank from this, there's no pain. There's no yelling. It's a euphoria, a bliss you've never felt before, a drug so potent that every single synapses in your brain is firing 3 times faster than they are meant to. And you remember the words he whispered into your ear, how he consumed the heart and the brain of the world eater. And before we go back to what that's going on with, both Murmur and the Oracle, you stumble in through the fog and the destruction, and you see this scene before you. You see Hanad staring at Jupiter, and then she falls down to the ground face first. And then you see Lilith devouring the body of Malice, the Archfiend. And then you see Jupiter staring at Erudite, and then his eyes move to the both of you while still invisible. And then he moves between you 3 and these 2. And he says, I cannot allow you to interrupt this. Please, put down your weapons, drop your spells. Let us enjoy ourselves as we see a new thing emerge.
Erudite drops invisibility. It's no use to concentrate on a spell that has no effect. And poof, 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 we're all visible again. Erudite's hovering 50 feet in the air.
Yes, yes, there we go, there we go. And you, Mama, I believe. I was told about you by Malice. You were once a gladiator here too. Take off your helmet, let me see your face. You're muted.
There you go. All right. So seeing his, the rust-covered gauntlets of his half plate appearing before him again, and realizing that they're all visible, and hearing Jupiter's words, Murmur looks at him through the visor of the helmet, and very slowly he reaches up to one of the horns on the helmet, grabs it, and pulls it up. And as he does, he remembers how when the group encountered those dead chain devils, how he wrote his true name, which he learned from the corpse mound, on his helmet, and he stops, puts the helmet back down on his head, and will attempt to attack Jupiter, swinging his obsidian longsword.
Go ahead, Yannis.
How far are the Hanad and Lilith from us?
I'll say about 35 feet away from you guys, 5 feet behind Jupiter, who again is 16 foot tall.
Okay. I would like to cast a spell.
Right, go ahead. And go ahead and roll your attacks and put them in the side chat for me, remember?
As Mermor, as I see him charge directly towards him, I will, with a half smile, pull my sleeve back up again and turn it towards the orchid scar tattoo and say, "This is the beginning." And as it lights up with white light, I will cast Mass Heal to Lilith and Hanad and any other that needs any hit points. And they're also cured by all diseases and any other effect.
Dope. I love it.
It's 700 hit points. I believe that's enough for both of them.
Yes. Everyone, of course, it's back to full hit points. The power of mass heal. Mega's like, eee! What did you get, remember? Modified 20 and 7. 2 crits, 1 minute. Ooh, 2 crits. Nice. I like it. What's the total damage on that? That's going to be the modified 20 is going to miss as well, basically. Only the 2 hits hit.
Only the 2 crits? Okay, and
Yeah.
then how did you want to do rolling for crits? Or just
it just goes straight to the blood.
Right, but I'm saying, so are we doubling the dice, or how are we
It's
doing?
just going to be normal damage.
Got it.
It just skips past the crit, basically.
Gotcha, that's right.
As we wait for the TikTok of damage. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Lilith.
it's 17 to blood total. I put it in the chat.
17 blood total. You dash forward and you slice out with your sword countless times. As you're doing so, Jupiter is laughing. He's giving out a resounding, ho, 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 what fun humans are. And he starts stomping his foot down on top of you. And you're basically fencing with like his heel, right? And when you finally calm down and you stop, you're covered in like this weird, very vaporous ichor that's moving around you. Very colorful, these oranges and these whites, almost like sherbet ice cream wrapping around you, right? And he lowers his foot and he's still scratching his chin and he says, "Ah, yes, I see why you were a powerful gladiator. So much spunk, so much strength, so much force of will. I like it, I like it." And then he pulls his foot back and he kicks you. Make me an athletic check, please. Sorry, my bad. A strength saving throw is what it should be.
That is a 22.
22. Yikes. Okay. The foot smashes you. You take 20 points of bludgeoning damage, and you go flying 60 feet backwards, basically bouncing off of countless pieces of debris, the stands, the actual shattered teeth of the ring of teeth, until you come to a stop 60 feet away from where he kicks you. Jupiter lowers his foot again and he says, "But alas, still just a human. You know, I would have figured the last 3 humans would have been smarter and stronger than this, given you've lasted so long. An erudite, it doesn't get past you. He says last 3 humans, not last 4 humans." In which case, Hanad opens her eyes and she looks up and she looks to you and she throws a finger to where Lilith is and she says, "You have to stop her now!" And as she does that, Lilith, make another Constitution saving throw for me.
It's an 18.
Beautifully failed. Erudite, what you see is horrific. I will not describe it now. Lilith, as you continue to consume, you are in some other place. Everything around you is white, but there are colors off in the distance, snaking into that whiteness. And you see a child before you, a tiefling child, a female tiefling child, naked as you are, standing at your feet. You have in your hands your axe, and she looks up to you and she is crying from one eye oil, from another eye blood. What do you do?
She would attempt to decapitate this child with one swoop.
The head goes flying, and the colors in the distance pulsate, and they grow tremendously closer to you. As the body falls over, you turn around, and you see a demon behind you. Jorimon, the archfiend of Malice, of course, back before he became Malice itself. Only he's shorter. He's your height. He's staring at you. He's smiling. He brushes some of your hair behind your ear in an almost creepy, sensual fashion. What do you do?
She would attempt to just bite into his arm and just tackle him to the ground.
When you tackle him, do you hack away with your axe as well?
No, she would use her teeth. She would bite into his jugular. She would try and scratch at him. Very feral at this point.
Perfect. I love it. As you do so, and the lights go closer and closer, we move back to where you're at right now, Erudite. You see Hanad telling you to stop this thing from changing, right? And this thing that was once Lilith. To move her away, to stop her from facing the something. What do you do?
Aaron looks down at the scene from his high vantage. He sees the big boot kick of Jupiter sending Murmur flying. He sees the hope that the Oracle just inspires everyone with his divine words. And he sees Lilith, what used to be Lilith, feasting upon the bleeding blood of a demon. And he's gonna swoop down next to her, next to Lilith, to get closer to get as close as he can get to yank her away off of the corpse.
Make a dexterity saving throw with disadvantage, if you would. Nice face, Connor.
11 is my total.
11. As you swoop down, Malice's hand rises up and it grabs you. And as it does so, your eyes roll back to the back of your head and you see a vision from 2 days ago. You see Lilith being led to this corpse of the World Eater. You hear him whisper those words. And then he says again, and this is no longer a memory, but something different, a dream maybe. He says, "Do you know what happens when you eat the flesh of God, little human?"
No.
Neither did we. But we did it anyway, because he wanted to destroy us. When your sister led when she led that slave revolt with that other human Murmur, the World Eater wanted to eat us as well, for he said we were failures. He could do what we could not. So the four of us tore him apart, but not one of us could eat the whole thing. Our bodies could not handle it, little human. So we split it up. Now what do you think will happen to your sister when she consumes that same divine spark mixed with my blood? Erudite.
I fear what she will become.
And you hear a haunting laugh behind that. And Malice moves in front of you as you're in this weird dream space with Lilith's human human body like frozen beside you, and all the tieflings frozen, and all 7 eyes on his cheeks are open and all bleeding freely now. And he sits down and he looks at you and he says, "Do you know why humanity failed when the tides of hell came sweeping through, erudite?"
It's because we did not know what we were, what we used to be.
True. You are but drops of an ocean, but there's something else you did not know as well, erudite. And he moves his wings. In the shadows of his wings, you see rising up are 4 figures. One is an ash elf, one is an orc, one is an incarnum, and one is a sorcery. And he says, 4 other beings inhabited this world with you, and yet not once did humanity lock arms with them to throw us back. Instead, humanity helped us. They became this, and he points to one of the tieflings. Or they became this, and he points to the demons and devils all around you in the streamscape. Or they became this, and he points at you, and then he points at Lilith. And not a single one of you thought to listen to his words, did you? And you turn your head, erudite, and you see the oracle standing there, the actual oracle, your comrade, the oracle, the wise man of the group who's spoken so much, who's been optimistic this entire time, who's been trying to get you all to work together with everything else in the world. Not once. Which is amendable, really. We don't listen to each other either. You see, we don't have souls. We're empty on the inside. We're just constructs made and programmed. But we're not like that anymore. We're not like that anymore. And then we move back into the real actual world. Murmur, you pick yourself up. Your breastplate has dented back into your chest. How do you feel after being kicked 60 feet away from Jupiter?
So I think as he was sort of laying on the ground outside of the Ring of Teeth, Murmur had this fleeting thought, probably for the first time in a very long time, that it would just be so nice to just stay on the ground, to just lay there. And for a moment, he seriously considered it, but then he would remember and look over sort of to the, I guess, to the north of his location in the direction of the gates, and he would see the spot where during the slave revolt, he was forced to leave the man with the golden hand, his fellow tribesman, the man that in truth he loved, behind, to be torn apart by demons and devils during this failed slave revolt. And that gives him the strength to rise slowly. Again, the breastplate dented, there's probably a little blood leaking from his mouth. And he sees Lilith. And where is the erudite in relation to Lilith right now?
He's right there beside her. He's in Malice's grasp. You can just barely make it out because in between the 60 feet is all kinds of rain, debris, and everything. The clearest thing that you see is just a 16-foot giant of Jupiter.
Right. So I think Murmur would remember the moment right before he was kicked, seeing Lilith just feasting on Malice's corpse. And again, probably for the first time in a very long time, he just roars out one word, and that word is abomination. And he just starts running towards the pit, completely ignoring Jupiter, trying to avoid getting within his attack range if possible, and heading in the direction of Lilith and the erudite as fast as he can.
He's right. He's basically right in between you two, and 60 feet away. So if you dash and you got there, you'd basically be standing right there in front of Jupiter as you got there again. All right.
Yeah, that's fine. He'll do that.
All right.
Sword and shield out.
As this happens, Oracle, you see Hanad see that Erudite is grabbed, and you see Erudite is grabbed too. And she looks at you with real fear in her eyes. And Oracle, what are you doing during all of this?
I would see that Lilith keeps trying to drink and consume the fiend's flesh, and I would shout towards Hanad and point towards Malice. keep him down. And I will start running. With 30 feet, I can get to where Lilith is, right?
You're 5 feet away. You're also standing right in front of Jupiter. And as you get there, you feel something behind you, and you look over your shoulder, and Murmur is right there beside you. And you're both basically running arm in arm directly at Jupiter.
Can I? So how far away is Lilith from me? If I
5
run
feet.
straight to her, I would cast with the other hand as I point towards Malice and shouting to Hannah to keep him down. I would pull a pouch from under my cloak, and I would throw it in front of me as I ran, and it would burst with and it would be sparkly like silver and iron, but dust. And I would run through it, and I would start simmering. And I would run, and as I get to where Lilith is, I would attempt to touch her and cleanse her from this fiendish influence by using Dispel Evil.
Dispel Evil. All right. You reach out to touch her, and doing so, you're going to proc an opportunity attack from Jupiter himself.
I have.
Go ahead.
He has disadvantage because of the Dispel Evil and Good. You cast on yourself and then you touch someone else.
What's your AC at?
My AC
Yeah.
is 15.
Oh, God, okay. Fundamentally, it's impossible for this to miss then, because he has a plus 16 to his attack.
Maybe he rolled a 1, who knows?
The foot impacts you, Oracle. It picks you up from. He did roll low. You gave him a 2, by the way. His disadvantage is very well placed.
Oh.
It picks you up, and make a strength saving throw for me.
I might use effort for that.
All right.
Well, it's a natural 20. So,
Natural 20?
So that's 21.
21. Perfect. You don't move the back the full 60 feet. You get lucky because of your natural 20. You go flying back 30 feet as he kicks you backwards, and you take only 12 points of grit damage as you bounce along the ground. Your spell never quite reaching Lilith, but you are oh so close, this close to touching her. And then that same foot starts stomping down again and again and again, directly on you, Murmur. So, what is your AC, just for reference?
21.
21. All these are going to hit. You're taking a flat even 100 points of grit damage, sorry, bludgeoning damage, as he is basically stomping you into the ground. What does it feel like as you're literally being broken apart by this Archfiend?
Yeah, I can't imagine it feels very good. I think Murmur's trying to angle his shield in between him and this impending foot, but it's just not working. His shield's probably denting and probably even cracking and breaking in places. He is not looking very good at all.
I love it. As you do so, Hanad goes flying beyond this cacophony of destruction, and she grabs Lilith by the back of her head, grabbing her hair, and pulls her backwards. As she does so, Lilith, please make me a third and final Constitution saving throw with advantage.
That's a 21.
So close, yet so far away. As you're pulled away, Lilith, and you land on the ground, we're still in that weird space where you're surrounded by this riot of colors, and you're kneeling over this devoured skeleton of Malice, whose bones you've broken open for the marrow, I imagine, covered in his black ichor. And you look up, and you see yourself. You see yourself in a completely different reality, where you have longer hair, where you're wearing these nice, beautiful, pristine clothes, where you're a person who wasn't raised in the pits of Malice, but instead in a world where humanity was able to flourish. And when you see yourself like this, what do you do?
She would begin to weep. But tears of anger instead of sadness. She would hate the person that she saw, this weak person. I think at this point, she would feel like she has conquered all, that she has conquered everything in this moment. And to see that version of her, I think, would bring on this intense anger.
And as that anger flourishes inside of you, this pristine version of yourself, Lilith, turns to dust and fades away. The world turns black, and then you see everything. You see everything from the very first moments, from when you were the world conqueror and the world ender and the bringer of destruction out in chaos. You see yourself destroying world after world as you need to. You see the five sisters make the world of Crifoth. You see them populate it with humans, populate it with yourself at one point. You tell them they're fools, and you go down there and you show them how foolish they were, and you lead an invasion into reality, and you, as the world eater, begin to destroy everything around you. And you discover the divine spark inside of all things, and you realize what humans are, and you realize what you yourself are. And it all kind of comes together in this weird synthesis, Lilith, as you finish consuming the brains and hearts of the world eater, the person who brought upon this Armageddon. And you also consume all the memories and the malice of Joy-Roman himself and of the world eater. And you open your eyes, and Hanad looks down at you, and she shakes her head. For this is what she sees. And this is what you see too, Oracle, as you stand up. And what you see too, Murmur, as Jupiter picks you up in his hand like you're a doll, and he shows this to you. And what you see too, Erudite, as Malice's dead hand lets go of you and you turn around. You see Lilith's skin as black as night. You see coming from her head are 4 pairs of horns, all. Her hair is stark white, and in the middle of her forehead is an open third eye, completely open, staring around, bouncing around, confused, scared. Her eyes are a solid violet color. She has a tail coming from her backbone, and 2 demonic wings coming from her back. And there's a light pouring from her left breast, from where her heart should be. In fact, there is no left breast. She's a hole with a spark inside of it glowing brightly. And she picks herself up. And Lilith, as you look around, you feel nothing but contempt and hunger for everything you see around you. An overwhelming contempt and hunger, and an overwhelming sadness, and knowing that you failed a mission whose details you don't quite fully understand. For a human was never meant to have the information or mind of a god. So tell me, Lilith, what parts of you do remain as Lilith herself? How do they react in this situation?
I think that Lilith's mouth, I think she would look at the orc who holds her, and she, just for an instant, she would see Lilith, like her eyes, just for an instant, her normal eyes, and she would look and just whisper, "Run." And she would blink again, and Lilith's eyes would be that violet color again.
Perfect. Jupiter throws you down, Murmur, and he jumps into the sky and he lands on his own throne and he screams something, I won't say, in Abyssal. You understand it completely well, Lilith. You understand that he's calling all the tieflings. And they begin to arrive very quickly, almost too quickly, as they're teleporting to the stands. And they're all are basically, the moment they see you, they fall to their hands and knees praying. Lilith, write this down. Right now you have 500 grit points, 100 blood points. You have 30 spells known, basically entire warlock spell list, as well as 1 spell through 6th through 9th level, which I'll tell you in private, right? You have the abilities of a warlock fiend patron, which is like the hurl through hell and all that and whatnot. You now speak Abyssal and Infernal completely fluently. And now actually I'll tell you the rest as it comes up, because you're gonna discover some of this in the next couple of hours. As these tieflings appear, Erudite, Oracle, and Murmur, what are you three doing?
I have the hands of an archfiend around me. I would vanish and appear 60 feet away out of the grasp, almost as if it was just a forethought, by tracing a small sigil in the air. But I'm studying the being I see in front of me that is no longer my sister. Studying as the erudite studies, not one of emotion, but just one of pure erudition. And the two of you, Murmur and the Oracle, you hear the erudite message you, come to my side now.
So is Malice, is he still alive?
No, he's nothing but a desiccated corpse on the ground.
I would turn to Hanad and shout, "Come!" And I will start running towards the erudite. As can I get there with in 30 feet?
Yeah, you can.
I would run to his side and that's it.
How close is the now transformed Lilith to Murmur?
Within 10 feet.
All right. So Murmur looks at you, Lilith, and it's probably hard to see through the dust, but you see that there's some sort of writing scrawled on his helmet in what looks like some sort of black dried cake substance. And he actually takes off the helmet, throws it at your feet, and spits before turning and running back towards your brother as quickly as he can, dashing with the full 60 feet of movement.
And once everyone is gathered there, what do you do? What do you say?
I would shout to Lilith, using real words with my real vocal cords. Lilith, if that's you, step towards me. If there is no Lilith left, if you're but the vessel of another god, farewell.
And how do you respond, Lilith?
She would step towards the erudite slowly, blinking. You can see like there's almost like this fight. There's like normal eyes, normal violet, as she's like blinking and she's coming towards you.
And Erudite would keep pausing. His silver longsword is outstretched, however. It's not pointed at you. It's pointed to the sand. And a keen eye would notice that he is drawing symbols into the sand with a graceful writing, almost impossible to see. You can see these eldritch sigils and words of a language no one knows how to speak or say that surround him, that surround his companions. And as you approach, if you were to step foot across this word wall, all four of us, and Hanad too, if she's with us,
She is.
we will teleport away from the scene with the last oomph of, or with one of the last oomphs of the Erudite's magical power. We will teleport far away from Malice, far away from this scene, far away from Jupiter, far away from the corpse of Malice, far away from where the sun's gaze can shine. It's a quiet place. It used to be the highest point on Crifoth before the massive mountain of corpses stacked year by year. A place where this earth meets the sky, meets the clouds. A place of reflection, a place of solace, a place of contemplation. Maybe even the Oracle has been here before. And we're all at this mountaintop, this summit. It is a place that the erudite picks out not because of its safety, because of its weird, ironic beauty. As this vantage point, you can see almost all of the hellscape of Crifoth. These specks, ants, which are massive demons, these behemoths of hell that slam and trudge through the caked earth and kill dozens. They're ants from this vantage point.
Does Hanad take that step and teleport with them, or no? Sorry, does Lilith take that step with them and teleport, or no?
Yes, she does.
So here the four of you are now. The camera moves back, and the tiefling is gathering are confused. And Jupiter is just scratching his chin, nodding and saying, yes, yes, this too was foreseen. This too was foreseen. In fact, were it not inheritors of the hell, someone is already approaching where they are. Oh, shit. And it moves back to you, the camera. And what are you guys doing? What are you guys talking about? Aren't you all there?
The erudite has a silver blade poised to Lilith's throat.
Murmur also has his obsidian longsword pointed at Lilith and is just constantly muttering abomination, filthy, disgusting abomination just under his breath, spittle flying from these thick, wormy lips.
Stay your blade, Murmur. Stay it.
Why should I? Look what she has done, and he spits again at her feet.
See her eyes, Murmur. Study them like I do.
Why would I look into those pits of nothing? There is nothing to see here. We should kill this thing and be done with it. Your sister is gone.
See the one eye. It is, yes, an abyssal hole of nothing. See the other. It is hers.
And Murmur stops and looks at the other eye for a second. And he still is holding his blade out with the tip pointed at her, and he just shakes his head slowly, his uncovered head, because his helmet is back in Malice now, and he says, we should kill this thing. It was Lilith. It is no longer. She made a mistake. Mistakes have consequences.
I don't think we can kill her.
Lilith is just staring at you guys while you're having this conversation, just blinking with this oddly calm expression. But she doesn't say anything, while it's almost as if she's waiting for you to come to your conclusion before she makes her next move.
Lilith, make a wisdom saving throw. And Yannis, what's your spell save DC?
19.
All right.
That's a 20.
Yannis, your spell does not work. Continue on.
Lilith.
Monster.
Lilith, there's one thing that will stay my blade, and stay Murmur's blade, and stay Yannis's wrath. What song did our mother sing to us when we were kids?
And she would look at you and just keep blinking. But slowly, this smile would come across her face. She sang us the songs of old. The song of the hero of the wind.
The erudite's arm loosens, relaxes just a tad. Under his breath in shallow words, he would say it would be directed at Murmur. She's eaten a god. Within her is the heart and mind of the World Eater himself, themself. The World Eater would not care about what song a maggot sings to another maggot. That is Lilith there. Lilith's thoughts. Only something so small would have so much value to someone so small like us. Stay your blade, Murmur. And Erudite would point his silver sword to the ground and not to Lilith's throat, opening himself up if Lilith wishes to kill him or something.
Murmur hears the erudite's words, and almost bizarrely, this smile quirks across his face, and he just shakes his head slowly. And then he lowers his blade, and he says loud enough for everyone gathered to hear, Malice, it is the city that takes everything you care about from you. It was true then. And he looks at you, Lilith, and one final time he spits at your feet. It is true now. And he turns and he actually walks away from the group.
I would take a step towards Lilith and I would say to her, do you have hope?
Hope? For what?
Never mind then. And he would take another satchel from his belt and he would start dipping his finger into some powdered rubies and scribe some sigils on the air. And as I'm doing, I'll yell loud enough for all to hear, keep hope in your mind and you'll be safe. And I'll start casting forbiddance on this mountaintop as a ritual.
I dig it. As you cast a spell, Hanad has been watching all of this, and she's staring directly at you, Lilith. And she asks you, is your name Lilith or Malice or something else now?
Malice was weak. Malice is dead. Lilith has transcended. She has conquered death. But she is not here. But then she shakes her head, and you can see that she blinks, that as if she's disagreeing even with herself. And she blinks, and there's just this eye of Lilith's, but then it blinks again. And then she looks out into the sands. They are coming.
Who is coming?
Those with the eyes that see all, that see everything.
And when you say those words, the camera shifts. And we're now just a few miles away from the foot of this mountain. And the camera is trailing after these footprints left in the blood sands. And these footprints are filled with oil. And the camera moves along them and then slowly turns up. And you see the back of this figure, the back of this robed humanoid figure, maybe just a little under 6 feet in height, a hood thrown up. And the camera moves closer and closer still. And then it begins to move around the hood. And you see the face mask pulled taut. You see it's very damp and wet with some dark fluid. And then it sees the face, this pale white face, and his eyes crying oil. And then the camera moves around the head again, and the figure stops, and it's looking just over the figure's shoulder. And down the side of the mountain, as the spell finishes, we can see Murmur walking down. Murmur, you can see off the cliffs because you were walking away, correct?
Right, yeah, I was walking away from the group, but I don't think he would have descended the mountain.
Yeah, I'm not saying you descend all the way, of course.
Gotcha.
As you're walking away from the group and you look over the cliffs, you see at the base of the mountain is a figure. The hair on the back of your neck rises, your molars begin to shake, and your hand begins to shake. You know that what's down there is something as great as an archfiend. But it's small and diminutive. You've never seen an archfiend look quite like this. What do you do?
Murmur would see this and feeling, the changes in his body, he would immediately head back to the group and go to the erudite and just say quietly, again, shooting this venomous glare over at Lilith Malice. Erudite, I believe another archfiend approaches. We have been found.
That's no surprise to me. Thank you.
You are welcome.
And almost in just as a weird irony, the erudite sits upon a rock. No haste or fear or stress of what to do overcomes him. He sits and he undoes his sandal, shakes out the dust and dirt from it, and restraps it to his foot, and does the same with the other, as he's relaxing here. He's got his sword kind of leaning against, the rocks and whatever. He sits.
Murmur would also go to Hanad and probably to the Oracle as well, and just let them know. I mean, he's not trying to be quiet, so they probably heard anyway, but just telling them that we have been discovered. Surprise, surprise. And then he walks over to just any sort of like upward pointing spar of rock, and he just sits down, somewhat like the erudite, but he takes his sword and just lays it across his knees, looking at Lilith the entire time. Even with this approaching threat, it's all that he can look at.
Oracle, what do you say since you've cast a forbidden spell on this mountain and you know that this Archfiend cannot step onto the mountain?
I would say after I finish it, we can have a moment of respite. It is safe here for now.
And Murmur just starts laughing, just like this awful, dusty, wheezing laugh when you say that it's safe here, but he doesn't actually say anything.
So, if you guys are actually just going to sit there, I can skip ahead 8 hours and give you guys a short rest. Is that what you guys would like? All right. 8 hours pass as you basically sit there with Hanad and the transformed Lilith at the peak of this mountain. The gray sun has set and there's a twilight bathing everything now. Has anyone been going to look over the cliff to see what's changing around, or have you guys just basically been kind of sitting there chilling?
The erudite is like making it almost obvious that he doesn't care. I imagine others may be a bit restless about like there's demons approaching. They're gathering en masse. The erudite sits. The erudite waits. He sometimes even takes a stick of a petrified tree and he draws pictures in the sand and the dirt, doodles, things to just pass the time by. There's no happiness to his face, no sadness, no grief. Blank as it always is, but now empty.
Murmur would definitely be taking a look to see how the Archfiend or whatever it is below, how they are progressing.
This robed Archfiend has not moved a single inch. He is standing there. The camera actually jumps to him for a moment, and he's literally just staring up the slopes of the mountain, and it moves down his face to where the oil is trickling down the face mask, all the way down to his feet, which are cracked white soles, just bleeding out this oil into a puddle around him that's seeping into the muck, right? You also see, off in the distance, a trail of 6 heading towards you. Not demons or anything, you can't quite make out what they are, but a trail of 6 figures are riding these massive bunny horse looking things straight towards where the mountain is.
Murmur would definitely share this information with the group.
Say, took them long enough.
And Lilith, what have you been doing these past 8 hours?
I think that Lilith would spend a couple hours at a time just staring at each of her companions for about 2 hours at a time, just staring, blinking. Meanwhile, she is taking just a mental map of starting from the top of her body, going all the way down, feeling every part of it, focusing on some and not on others. And she would be murmuring, "They see all. They see everything."
Sometimes when you murmur, Lilith, it's not your voice that comes out, but the voice of a child, or the voice of an elderly man, or the voice of a young woman. All these different voices. And you can feel them churning inside of you. The shards of the demons of the world eater. So the shards of the humans that the World Eater had consumed, all their souls thriving in around you. And you can feel that occasionally they gain a semblance of who they once were, and they speak through you. But they only repeat the words you let them repeat, which is the we see all. And then they become more of that listless mass inside of you, that kind of sea of white that when you close your eyes, you keep seeing. So 8 hours have passed, and now these figures are approaching the base of the mountain from the opposite side of where the Archfiend is. As they begin to climb up, Hanad narrows her eyes, and she looks back to you all, and she says, shelves. What?
They were summoned.
Spectators.
Let them wait the 3 more days. We'll sit here 3 more days.
They are free to come.
If we sit here 3 more days, human, we will die of sun exposure, of no water, and of no food.
She is right. We should go soon.
Let's meet with them first.
Should all of us come, or perhaps just you, Oracle, or perhaps just the erudite? And Murmur smiles in a slightly disconcerting manner.
You are free to come, anyone who wishes to, and I will walk to the edge of the spell towards the elves and wait for them.
I will stick with my sister. Her condition is interesting to me.
I will remain as well.
Lilith, make a wisdom saving throw at the mention of the word ash elves.
Is an 18.
18. All right. You feel an overwhelming amount of anger inside of you explode forth, and the malice inside of you begins to rage. And you have an almost uncontrollable urge to obliterate these ash elves. Whether it's actually uncontrollable or not, I leave completely up to you. With that said, what will you do as Oracle walks away towards the edge of this mountain?
She would get up very calmly, but I don't know if Erudite would see it. There's a twitch in her hand, something that they used, something that happened as children when Lilith would get made fun of or you would get made fun of. She had this odd little tick that showed when she was upset. And she would walk towards the Oracle, say, in the most unenthusiastic voice or matter-of-fact voice. I will come with you.
I think that is a terrible idea. You should stay.
The erudite stands up, using his silver sword as a bit of a cane. I'll come with.
You are more than welcome to join us, Murmur.
The way you said that was so perfectly creepy, you get a point of inspiration.
Murmur just nods once, gets up, his sword's still out. He hasn't sheathed it since we started the rest 8 hours ago, and just walks at a distance behind the group.
So, Oracle, as you approach the edge, you see that the 6 ash elves have stopped and they've dismounted their mounts, and they're now walking on foot the rest of the way. As Lilith appears beside you, one of them raises their hand and stops the other 5 ash elves and continues by herself. She, unless she is for some reason stopped, she goes to the peak of the mountain. And it's that same ash elf that spoke to you, erudite, whose ears were so long that they touched behind the crown of her head, notating her age. And she looks at you, looking down at all of you, and then she looks to Lilith, and then back to you, Oracle, and then back to Lilith, and she takes a step back. And you realize, Murmur, quicker than anybody else does, that this is an ash elf who's extremely cautious and is on the defensive right now. Oracle, or anyone else, what do you guys say?
I would say, welcome. You found us. One of the fiends is dead. With an eye glance at Lilith.
Malice is not dead.
No, he is not.
You're saying that this is now Malice.
And she stares at Lilith. She stares at you hard, Lilith. And she takes another step back and she says, the sun told us to come here. The sun told us to watch. The sun told us to make sure his revenge was earned. The sun did not tell us that this was here. I did not take you, and her eyes looked to you for just a barest moment, Murmur. I did not take you for one who would let something like this exist in the world.
Believe me, if it was not for her brother, she wouldn't.
You seem so certain about that, Murmur, that you would even have a chance.
What terrifies a man that has nothing left to lose? Malice. And he leans forward. Nothing.
Take a point of inspiration, Murmur. That was fire.
The erudite, as the watcher, is perched upon a ledge 20 feet higher than everyone else, just overlooking the scene from a distance. His cloak is just wrapped around him. There's only the small glint of a silver light near where his feet are. Just the tip of the silver sword would peek out from under his cape, his cloak, and glisten in the sunlight. And he just watches the drama unfold beneath him.
The Ash Elf says this. She says, before the entire world were your allies. We may not have seen it. We may have been just spectators in many ways. But humans, we were here to help you through these 7 days. That I can confirm, for I know many things and have spoken to many survivors. But with this, and she looks back to Lilith, the entire world is your enemy in truth now. And when she says that, she reaches into her cloak, into the sleeve, and she pulls out a long, wavy sword of pure silver, a blade. And she says, let me kill it.
She is not gone yet entirely.
She will eat. She will consume. I don't care if she's gone or not. Listen to me once, human. Put your arrogance aside and listen to me. Let me slit that thing's throat.
What if she helps us against the others? If she's willing to fight, why not let her be with us?
The Ash Elf diverts her attention, maybe mistakenly so, from Lilith for just a few seconds, and she looks to you, Oracle, and she says to you, do you know what that is?
No.
Neither do I. And the last time we elves let something we didn't know what it was come onto this world, it killed everything. I'm going to kill it now. You can stand beside me if you want, or you can stand in front of me, between me. But that thing's throat is getting slit.
I do not think you could do it if you tried.
At that moment, the ash elf, impossibly old, is also revealed to be impossibly fast as she dashes forward. Yannis, as she moves beside you, you're welcome to an attack of opportunity if you would like.
I wouldn't.
All right. Murmur, as she moves past you, you're welcome to an attack of opportunity if you would like.
No, I think as soon as the Ash Elf moves, Murmur's gaze snaps to the erudite, again with his sword and shield out, just waiting to see what he does, because he knows deep down, and maybe he's always known, that the Oracle is not truly the one to fear. It's always been the erudite, this person who has been both our salvation and our damnation, both.
And before the ash elf reaches Lilith, erudite, what do you do?
The erudite watches from afar.
Lilith, I will give you a single reaction before she makes this attack on you. What do you do?
So she would, I think at this point, Lilith, the third eye would be closed. And as the elf comes to attack Lilith, the eye would open. And they have to make an intelligence saving throw.
That's a fail.
Actually,
Hmm?
How far away are the other elves?
They're down the slope. I'm gonna say about 50 feet.
Okay.
Or we'll go with 30. I think 30 is probably better.
Okay. And I wrote this and I didn't put in the
Nice.
good job. Okay, so no, they this ash elf takes 52 points of psychic damage.
Kills it.
And so you would just see this ash elf stop as soon as the eye opens. And blood begins to pour from her ears, from her eyes, from her mouth. As she just, or as this ash elf just stops. And then just crumbles down. And you can almost see brain matter and blood coming out of her ears. Otherwise, she is untouched.
She falls to the ground, and then her corpse slides down the slopes and bounces. You hear the screams of several of the ash elves, the shock, the horror as they see that their matron has been destroyed. And one of them, looking at this, a young ash elf with ears that are dainty, who is short, maybe he's barely 5 feet in stature. He looks at his feet as the matron falls down to there, rolling there. And then he picks up the silver blade, and this young child ash elf looks up and begins to run up the slopes directly towards you, Lilith. What is everyone's reaction as this is going down?
I would cast on all the elves calm motions spell
All
and
right.
say, stand your ground.
They fail, so they stop, and the screaming stops. And the young ash elf stops too, but he's standing on the brink of the edge of the cliff, and his hands are shaking with the blade in there, and he's crying openly and it's looking at you, Lilith, like you're the incarnation of evil itself. Murmur and Erudite, what are you two doing?
Murmur will go over to the weeping child, just giving Lilith this empty look before returning his focus to the child, and he'll get down in front of the child and just say very quietly, "Turn around and go back down the mountain. Tell your people to go. You will do no good here."
The erudite watches from his ledge. He hasn't moved an inch.
As the Ash Elves stand there, shaking, confused, calmed but enraged, calmed but disgusted, calm but terrified and crushed. There's an odd breeze that blows over everyone then. And Oracle, you realize rage. you realize, Oracle, that your forbidden spell has been dispelled by a stronger magical force. And as that breeze continues to blow over you, the camera just quickly turns down the other side of the cliff, and the camera is following these footprints filled with oil as his figure moves up the cliffside. What do you say, Oracle? What do you do?
We're not safe anymore. My protection has faded. Something's coming.
Has the Ash Elven child with the sword moved?
It is not. It's too confused and scared and strangely magically calm to actually move.
So yeah, Murmur would just lay one gauntleted hand on this child's shoulder if it will allow him to, or if he will allow him to, and just say, "Turn around and go."
The child drops the silver blade to the ground, and then it turns and it looks back up to you, and then it turns back away and it runs. It runs down to the corpse of the matron, to where the other Ash Elves are circling it, and it helps them pick her up, and it helps them put her onto her mount, and it mounts up with all the rest, and they begin to flee at full speed down the slope of the mountain.
Before they do that, I'm wondering if Lilith could get within, I found the range, it's within 90 feet.
Definitely can.
Okay. And you would just hear this high-pitched whine coming from Lilith, even though her mouth is closed. It seems to be coming from the eye that is open in the middle of her forehead. And they need to make a intelligence saving throw.
They all fail. Is this what I think it is?
Yeah.
Okay, describe what it looks like as heads burst.
It starts with, I can just imagine that they all start going down and they load up this elf onto this bounder. And they all just hear this screaming in their heads. And immediately, before they even have time to react, their emotions still calm. Their heads begin to explode one by one. And they fall off their bounder mounts.
Make a strength saving throw for me, Lilith.
Okay. Oops.
You need a 26 or higher.
No, that's not a 20.
Hanad tackles you from behind, and she begins smashing you as hard as she can with her hands. She sees you destroy their heads, and she is having instant flashbacks to when the Demon of Song pulled the same stunt against the entirety of Mother Base, and so many orcs were wiped out. She is screaming and mourning, and the entire mountain is shaking, and she is swinging her hands against you. Most of them don't even hurt you. right? It's as if rain is falling down upon your face as she is just leaning in and just pounding as hard as she can, screaming out in her orc tongue, abomination, again and again and again. Murmur, Yannis, and Erudite, what do you three do?
Murmur is going to go for the fallen Ash Elf Matron's silver sword. As soon as Hanad tackles Lilith, he's going to pick up that sword and try to impale her, stab her in some way, shape, or form.
Impale Hanad or Lilith?
Lilith.
Perfect. Erudite, what are you doing?
The erudite, upon his ledge, looking at the drama below, the scene, the commotion, the goring heads, he watches. And then he stops watching. He turns his back and begins to walk the other way.
And I think you would hear in Lilith's voice, as you turn, you would hear, "Brother, help me."
He pauses mid-step. And he appears beside you. Not towards you, but perhaps at your back.
Do you do anything as she's put on the ground and being beaten to death? Murmur, you can see, is running straight towards her, silver blade in hand.
Yeah. The erudite looks down at Lilith and studies her face, studies the third eye on her forehead, studies the lack of flinching that she does from the wails and the smashings of this orc. How is Lilith looking to the studying eye of the erudite?
Sorry, what was the question?
What does the erudite in his studying eye see from Lilith?
You can see that one eye is remaining Lilith eye. No matter how many times she blinks, there is no switching, there is no nothing. And that eye is full of guilt. Something that you haven't seen in Lilith since she was a child. There is guilt and fear in her eye, while her other eye remains unmoving and emotionless. And she looks at you and she says, "Please."
When you say please, Murmur appears, swinging down the blade. What do you do, Erudite?
I would like Hanad to make a wisdom saving throw.
All right. She fails.
She is paralyzed from a full person spell.
Perfect. Hanad's fist stopped just above your face. For just the briefest seconds, Lilith, what do you do as you see the silver blade coming at you from Murmur?
Murmur, you see Lilith look at you for an instant, and you do not see Lilith. You see malice. You see death itself as she looks at you, opens her eye.
Can I do my thing?
Yeah, what do you do, Oracle? Before this resolves real fast.
I would walk to after Lilith did that, I would walk towards her and with calm pace, even after she was tackled by Hanad, and I would stand next to her and then say, "By the watchful eyes of the stars, I condemn you." you shall never speak again. And with probably the first time you've seen his face very serious, he would tap his staff on the ground and say, silence. I will cast a magic field around us.
Perfect.
No magic.
I like it. As that anti-magic field is established, I'm going to say the thing you're going to do right before that, Lilith, on Murmur will go through, but then the Hanad stuff will break. So what were you going to do to Murmur?
So, Murmur, you see Malice. You see Lilith change in body, though she doesn't really change physically. And she just smiles at you. And everything for you goes black. And you would take 67 points of damage.
So what you see Erudite and Oracle as you walk up, which I guess is what prompts you to cast an anti-magic field, is that Murmur just flat disappears. He's gone. He's somewhere else temporarily, and you're not sure where. Mechanically speaking, Murmur, you've been hurled through hell, the 14th level Warlock patient ability. That being said, as the anti-magic field is established, Hanad shakes for a second. She looks at you, Erudite, and what is your AC, Erudite?
Considering that we're in an anti-magic field, my armor class is 13.
Okay, perfect. She beats the shit out of you, Erudite.
She does.
Just to put it severely. She jumps up and she's just wailing into you. Uppercut, ribs, skull, temple, feet, balls, face. Again and again and again, another blow. Every blow is heavy as hell. And you're taking a total of, let me do this math real quick, my friends. Wowzers. You're taking a total of 45 points of damage as she begins beating the shit out of you. As she's doing so, Oracle and Lilith, well, this is with you, Lilith. Lilith, you're now in this anti-magic field. You can feel as if you've been cut off. You can barely breathe, right? And you're staring around at you, but now Hanad is off of you and beating your brother to death. The Oracle is standing above you. What do you do?
I think that this would be a moment of clarity for Lilith. Her eyes would return to normal, and she is going to try and get up, and she is going to try and separate Hanad from the erudite.
Make a athletics check.
That's a 21.
21, perfect. You grab them both, you throw them apart. As you do so, Murmur, you come back to our world in a different location. You land on the peak of the mountain, right? And what do you look like having been hurled through this black void and mentally destroyed by it almost?
So I think Murmur, when he lands, he somehow, despite everything he's been through, he manages to do the 3-point landing, and he snaps his head up in this fluid, almost feral motion. And anybody who is looking, his gray eyes are just blank. There is this feral, cruel grin on his face. The flesh, this sort of tanned, leathery flesh that was on his craggy face before, is peeling back like from an intense sunburn, but obviously that's not the cause. There are huge rents in his breastplate, his greaves, and his gauntlets. And he just screams this guttural, broken scream as he throws himself at Lilith.
Perfect. So you go swinging into the anti-magic field. As you do so, that silver blade in your hand begins to melt, and then you're just holding just a hilt. And you throw yourself at Lilith, who's keeping the erudite and Hanad separated at arm's length with herself. Do you just throw yourself at her and still attack?
Correct.
All right. So make your attack rolls. Oracle, what are you doing during all this?
I would say Hanad. He is not against you. She is and I would point towards Lilith. And nothing else.
And I think at that Lilith would say, her eyes are normal, she would say, I only did what I thought was right. I only did this to protect all of you.
You're
Don't you
interrupted mid-sentence, Lilith, as Murmur crashes into you.
Yeah. See,
And I think actually, as she's starting to finish this sentiment, Murmur would just thunder with this broken, loud voice, almost caught between a shout and a scream. You do not know what is right, filth! And then he would just smash into her. Would I be rolling this as, I guess, unarmed, or could I say that he had his actual sword out?
I'm gonna say, yeah, because you still have your sword on your hip, so you could easily just drop the handle and draw your weapon.
Okay, cool. Do you want me to just put the?
Yeah, just put them into chat. As this is going down, Erudite, you see that Lilith gets tackled and basically lain into by Murmur, and you look up, and her nod looks from the Oracle to you. What do you do, Erudite, as she stalks towards you again?
Where the erudite once held a silver sword, it also had vanished in the anti-magic field. The sword, its elegance, had been crafted by elves, and is thus disabled in this field too. So erudite is completely without any resources. He's magicless, he's weaponless, he's defenseless, he is just a survivor in ragged cloths. You can see that wrinkles of time appear all over his skin. His flesh sags as if he's aging before your eyes. He stalks back, disengaging from Hanad, and tries to exit this anti-magic field desperately. But he stops.
If you proc one attack of opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you're running, she is going to get a hit that is going to do 11 points of damage as she basically smashes you in the small of your back, and she chases you. As she chases you, as reactions go, not Murmur. Oracle, you have an attack of opportunity. Will you take it on Hanad?
No, I wouldn't. I would. No, I wouldn't.
All right.
I'd just stay near Lilith.
Perfect. As you step out of the anti-magic field, how big is it, Yannis? 30 feet or 60 feet?
No, it's
10 feet.
10 feet. 10 feet.
10 feet. Okay, you get out of it. So you get out of the erudite, and as you turn around, Hanad is fast on your heels. What do you do?
The sword regrows from the hilt again, to silver, aligning itself into a sleek blade. Erudite would take to the sky, just straight up. As he
Perfect.
casts fly upon himself and distances himself severely from all of this.
As you fly into the stratosphere of Crifoth, you look down, erudite, and you see that a sixth figure has appeared on the top of the mountain, and you see the oil footprints behind it. And then we go back to you, Murmur, who is still a lot of damage. I guess to normal people would be a lot of damage. To Lilith now, not so much. Lilith, what is your reaction as these sword strikes just fall upon you and interrupt what you're saying?
Lilith is going to try and subdue Murmur. She doesn't want to hurt him. She just wants for him to not hurt her anymore, while saying, there is someone else who is more of an enemy than I am right now. You are being foolish. And you can hear that Lilith's voice and her eyes are back, like this is her.
And I think Murmur, because I envisioned, as the silver sword melted, he's taking his obsidian longsword in 2 hands and just smashing it into Lilith. Not even really cuts, just trying to bludgeon her over the head with it almost. As you say this and he sees this, his battered mind after what he's just endured can barely process it, and he just says, "For so long, I have searched for a purpose. We have just been running and running and running," and he just keeps getting angrier and angrier, spittle flying from his mouth. "But now I have a purpose. Thank you." And he is going to resist the attempt to be subdued by Lilith, just struggling and flailing to get away from her so he can continue bashing her across the face.
As you're struggling, Hanad appears behind Lilith like the shadow of death and begins to smash into her head and her back. She gets 3 hits on you, dealing a total of 32 points of damage to your grit, Lilith. Since you have an absurd amount of grit, you barely feel it, right? It's like tickling your back, but she's beating at you all the same. Lilith, what do you do?
Lilith is trying to speak with Murmur. I think that she's going to try and like just hold him down. So maybe that's a strength, opposing strengths.
Yep. So that's going to be opposed athletics checks. We'll go with that.
Okay. Yeah. Oops. I got a 24.
Hang on, sorry, I'm trying to look up something. I think I might have something for this. Hang on.
Indomitable, I don't think works on the double checks, but it might. I have no idea.
Indomitable is gone. That was gone last session.
My bad.
Yeah, I thought I had something called Superior Athlete, but I think that might be something else. So I'm just going to go ahead and roll the strength check. And this is a check, not a save, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they're competing checks.
All right. Well, I already rolled it, so I'm not going to burn effort. I should have burned effort. That's a 9.
Perfect. So you slam Murmur into the ground, and you're holding him there as Hanad is just beating into your back. Oracle, do you do anything as this is happening before you?
As I turn to look the other creature that joined us on this top, and all this time hearing this Lily's plea that it's here and to stop, I'll just say to her, prove it. Take care of him. And I'll point to the stranger that is leaking oil and joined us here.
And when you... Oh, go ahead, Lilith.
And Lilith would look at you. She's holding down Murmur. Hanad is just beating on her. And she looks to the Oracle and she says, I'd be more than happy to. Just keep them off of me. I am not their enemy.
Sure, one at a time. I'll try.
Hanad has slowed her beating, realizing that she is literally trying to break something that cannot be broken, and her orcish fury cannot be sustained given the exhaustion that she's already felt. And so as she slows down, breathing, she steps away from you, Lilith, and then she looks down to her hand, which is shaking violently. And then she looks at Murmur, who's shaking as well. You, Lilith, are not shaking at all. And her eyes look up, and you see standing on the precipice of the cliffs, looking down on all of you guys, is the Hellslick Deathseer. As he stands there, the camera lifts back to him, this cloaked figure, completely pale underneath it, leaking this oil. And he looks up to see you, Erudite. And then he looks back down to all of you. And then he raises his hand, and he does kind of like a brushing motion. And you realize he's casting a spell, Erudite. and he casts Dispel Magic, and the anti-magic field is going to be blown away like dust on the wind.
Rules question: is the anti-magic field static, or does it move around?
It's on top of the center on the point where Yannis is.
Does
So
it move with, does it move with him?
it does not
Yeah,
move
it
with
moves
him.
with me.
Oh, it moves
does.
with you? Yeah,
Yeah.
it moves with him. So
Okay, yeah. So I would try to counterspell this.
Counterspell. All right, so go ahead and do your check. You'll probably be able to do it just fine.
Yeah, I forget how I do this. All right.
That's an 9th level, by the way.
Oh, it's 9th level?
8th level.
8th
And
level. Okay, yeah. So you need to get a 19 on the check, and I believe you can add your abjuration stuff to it because it'll take a 9th level spell slot to dispel it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, this is good. Oh, yeah. Easy. 26.
It stops moving its hand, and it looks up to you. And it looks back down to its hand. And it actually just sits down, cross-legged, right? And it stares at you, erudite. And as it does so, you begin to feel something odd in the air. As this happens, Lilith, what do you do?
Lilith is going to try and move until she is outside of the magic ward. So she's going to let go of Murmur. And then she is going to just stare at this archfiend.
When you
They-
stare, go ahead.
Just murmuring again in like all these cacophony of voices, just they see all. They see everything.
The Hellslick Deathseer bows his head to you as if in reverence, and he raises his hands like this as if praying to you. And then finally he speaks, saying, Queen of Queens, Mother of Mothers, I welcome you back into this world, for you have given birth to yourself for the 3rd time now. Do what you will, and I will be your guide.
I didn't expect that, so I don't know how. Lilith would just stand there looking at this archfiend and then back to the others. What do you want?
Jupiter's forces have cornered the Incarnum. They have cornered the Blood Knights, and they have cornered the Orcs. The Ash Elves still prove beyond my sight, but just barely. With your word and your power, we shall break them all and make the world as you planned.
And I think slowly Lilith's eyes would blink and this middle eye would slowly begin to open, and you'd see this grin begin across Lilith's face. But then she would just shake her head, try to get that out of her mind as much as she can to regain what little power she is clinging on to over her own body. And this this thing needs to make a wisdom saving throw.
Your spell, when you cast it, has absolutely almost no effect. As it almost effortlessly surpasses your spell save DC.
Okay.
And then it says to you, Mother of Mothers, Queen of Queens, as instructed, I will now bury you inside the heart of this world until you are ready to do your job. And then it puts its hands down on the ground beneath it, and it casts the 9th level spell on you, Imprisonment. The ground opens up, and you fall directly underneath, and you keep falling, and then the ground seals above you. You are currently sealed several hundred miles below the surface of Crifoth, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to do anything until released. The Hell Slick Death Seer stands up, bleeding this oil everywhere, and he looks to you humans in the Orkanad and he says, I will leave now. And then he turns and he begins to retrace his steps through the Blackfoot oil prints. What do you guys do?
Hold. The erudite floats down to in front of the Hellslick Death Seer. 40 feet away, whatever. It's locking. He's locking eyes with this thing. I have a proposition for you. You want these ash elves gone? I want my sister back.
You do not know who I am, so I do not blame you for speaking in ignorance. I have seen that we would have this conversation. I have seen the 168 ways this conversation can go. I have seen the outcomes of the 47 different battles we could have out of those 168 outcomes. And I have seen the 47 ways that you die, and the one way that you drive me off of Crifoth and back to hell before I return. Your chances of doing so are very slim. Your chances of convincing me are even slimmer. Please move aside so I may continue walking.
The erudite does so.
I see. That is the future that I live in right now. And then he continues walking past you.
Murmur during this entire exchange has just been sort of kneeling in this crouch after Lilith dropped him. And now he's just staring dead-eyed at the place where she was before the ground opened up and swallowed her. And he very slowly looks over to the erudite and then at the retreating back of the Hellslick Deathseer. And he looks like he's about to say something, but then he stops and he stands up slowly because his body is still battered and bruised from his hurtle through hell. And he actually sheathes his blade.
The Deathseer stops and he turns and he says, when the sun rises gray and angry, this mountain will collapse and she will rise again. And should she be willing to fulfill her destiny and to create the proper future, well, she will not need to be sealed again. Ensure that this happens, the last 3 humans that live. And then he continues walking. And at those words, as the Hellslick Deathseer essentially tells you 3 to ensure that Lilith rises back up as the goddess of Armageddon to bring an end to all the other races of Crifoth, the 4th day finally comes to an end. A very confusing end, an end that no one expected, and an end that will lead to a 3 days that will require the 3 of you to either become genociders or potential stoppers of the final apocalypse. With that being said, thank you for everyone who did watch and who will watch this once I upload on my channel. It's been a very fun game. None of this was planned. My notes were thrown out the window the moment she put her fangs into Malice, and I had no idea what was happening the entire session. So, thank you guys very much, And Jake, take us the fuck out of here.